Hi, beautiful friends. So I just wanted to hop on today to talk a little bit about my story. So if you've been following along, you know that I wanted to talk to you guys about this stuff. I wanted to talk to you about the things that I've been through, the things that I've had to overcome, the things that I've needed to heal, that got me to where I am today. So, in case you don't know, my name is Anna. I consider myself a spiritual coach, and it kind of encompasses everything that I do. So, spiritual coaching for me is Reiki, meditation, crystals, oracle cards, numerology, angelic healing. All of those things kind of combined into one. And what I do with that is I just pick the practices that I use that I feel would be most beneficial for you, what's going to help you have radical transformation. So the things that I've been through that have led me here. So in the beginning of life, as a child, I was very much a victim of bullying. I guess people just felt that I was an easy target for many reasons. I've always been a bigger girl. And, I would let those things bother me. I definitely had very, very reactive energy. So when I felt attacked, I was very reactive. So that led to ongoing bullying. This honestly lasted all through my school years. This went all the way through till probably about maybe grade 10, grade 11. Constantly bullied for whatever reasons, because I was a little bit weird, I was different, I was a bigger girl, but I never really let my body hold me back from the things that I wore, so that would sometimes provoke some bullying as well. And I had successful relationships for the most part in high school. There was one guy in particular that I was with for just a little over a year at the beginning of high school, and it was a great relationship. I was so very happy with it. But once that relationship ended, I had a very difficult time probably being myself in other relationships, because that relationship had just left such an impression on me. It just left like such a heartbreak in me. You know what they say about first true love, right? So it was really difficult for me to find successful relationships after that point, because I was just so devastated, right? But what happened after that is, you get into other relationships and things just kind of go and move along. And I was with this other guy for, again, a little over a year. But what ended up ending our relationship then, so now I graduated high school and I was with this guy at the end of high school, and then moving on into, regular life, going off to college and whatnot. And it was a great relationship. Like, I loved him dearly. He was the first for a lot of things. And, but me and his mom did not get along. She seriously thought I was like the devil incarnate. But unfortunately what happened there is I did get a little bit of PTSD, because he became so ill, so very sick. He almost lost his life. So now we're talking 18-year-old me is now dealing with this relationship that's so very important to me. But to see him at the time, we thought it was his deathbed. Honestly, he was very, very sick. I was working overnights at a restaurant, and I would spend my entire day with him at the hospital. I would come home to just have a couple of hours of sleep and move on to my next shift. So I was having exhaustion. I was just having so many things that were happening and going on to me while he was going through it. And unfortunately and selfishly, I ended the relationship because it was just too difficult to be with somebody with such extreme health issues. I was 18 years old. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to be supportive. And I just knew that it was just taking way too much out of me to consistently be there. And I felt very selfish, and I felt very guilty about that for a very long time. And then I moved on to the next relationship not long after. And in the beginning, this relationship was really, really good. I felt like this was going to be my it. This was going to be my all. So I'm still 18 going on to 19 now. And the first year and a half was great. It was wonderful, but it was one of those situations where I found myself with a narcissist and I didn't know it. I didn't know I was with a narcissist. And as the relationship progressed, I eventually found out that drugs were introduced to him. Maybe he had been doing them all along, I don't really know. But it changed him. It changed him at his core, and I became a victim of domestic abuse. We were together for 6 years. And out of those 6 years, 4 years, I was emotionally and physically abused. Now, that's a lot to try to accept and try to stop when you've already felt so worthless while you were being bullied all through your developmental years. And now I'm a young adult, and now I'm being physically and emotionally abused by somebody who's supposed to love me. So that made me think that this is my life. This is just how it's going to be. I am not worthy of true love. Or maybe this is what true love actually is. Maybe he just doesn't know how to express it. So I stayed with it. I stayed with it for a very long time. And he was a massive drug addict, okay? I am not talking about small fries here. I'm talking about it began with crack cocaine. It continued with cocaine. It developed further to methamphetamine. And I tried so hard to get this man to see the light, that this is not what he needed to do with his life, that people cared about him and that he didn't need drugs. But I just wasn't the person for that. And it turned out that I was actually enabling him by allowing him to continuously abuse me, by allowing him to continuously do the things that he was doing, to like do drugs and not putting boundaries, not setting limits. And it left me a shell of a person. And I'll never forget it. Because I got him off crack. I got him off cocaine. We moved away. I thought maybe like leaving the situation and leaving the environment was going to help. But he found more drug addicts to hang out with, and that's exactly what he did. At the time, I didn't know. So we met originally in New Brunswick. We broke up. I moved to Newfoundland. He moved to Alberta. After a few months in Newfoundland, I decided to follow him to Alberta. Even though, like, at that point, I had a restraining order on him because he tried to push me out of a moving vehicle. I had met somebody in between there, and he lost his mind and keyed his car. I believe he tried to slash the tires of this guy's vehicle as well, but he wasn't successful. But anyway, there was a lot of trauma, a lot of trauma. And I will never forget the day that I ended that relationship, because he had actually been putting effort forth. He had been clean from methamphetamine for 3 weeks. And that's a huge deal. Like, that's a big thing to do. And he was doing it on his own. Like, I was right there on his side. I was by his side every minute, through every withdrawal, through every symptom. And like, it wasn't pretty. Like, it was not a good situation to be in. So I believe that I had gained some PTSD from that as well. But the day that I ended it, he had been clean for 3 weeks. And I don't even know to this day what came over me. But I remember so clearly we were just there cuddling in bed. It was first thing in the morning. I was just waking up. And I turned to him and I said, "This isn't working anymore." And he was just like, "What do you mean? Like, I've been clean. I've been doing all the things that you've been asking for." And I was just like, you know what? I don't know what it is. I'm like, but inside my body right now, I'm feeling like it's just too late. It's too little, too late. I'm done. I can't go down this road anymore. And I feel like if I'm going to continue with you, that you're just going to relapse again and again, because I've allowed it to happen for so long. So unfortunately, at this point, we need to separate. We need to remove ourselves from each other in order for both of us to be able to move on in a healthy manner. And that's what we did. It took him a while. I unfortunately had to call his mom and send him back home to New Brunswick because he was threatening to kill himself. He was breaking into my house. He was just doing all sorts of very crazy things that made it really difficult for me to continuously say no and keep that boundary up, because so many times we broke up, got back together, broke up, got back together, typical toxic codependent relationship, right? We would just keep coming back to each other. So this was the final straw, and it ended, and it was what it was. And then not long after that, I found who is now my husband. But I didn't take the time to heal. So unfortunately, my husband had to really put up with a lot of my emotional baggage, a lot of my emotional junk. I honestly can't tell you how we've made it this far already, because there's definitely been a lot of stuff that I have not intentionally put on his plate, but my own insecurities, my own trust issues, my own PTSD that followed into the relationship. And it did create a lot of problems for us. So as I began this healing journey and I started exploring because I was having symptoms of depression and anxiety after I had given birth to my son, but it was discovered that it wasn't postpartum depression, that I had been suffering from depression and anxiety for a very long time. I just didn't recognize it. So I did start medication. I was on medication for my depression and anxiety for a year and a half. And when I reached that point of just over a year, I'm like, I have to do something else. I'm like, I do not want to keep medicating myself to make myself feel better, because yes, the anxiety was better. Yes, the depression was better, but I didn't feel like me. I didn't feel like who I truly am. I just felt like a blank slate. And I didn't want that for my son, and I didn't want that for my husband. I didn't want that for our relationship. There's just so much more to me. So I started exploring and started doing some things, started some little meditations and just a few little things. And I prayed to the universe. I said, please send me somebody or something that's going to help me through this. I'm like, because I'm holding on to so much of my past that I am unable to live in the present, and I am consistently concerned about the future. I'm like, this is no way to live. This is no way to enjoy life. So I had to explore and find out what it is that was going to work for me. But after I made that prayer, somebody came into my life. She is now my life coach. She is an EFT practitioner that does tapping. If you don't know what that is, it's definitely an amazing, valuable tool that I'm hoping to add to my list of services as well someday. But it made me realize, and it made me see that all of the events that have happened through my life have been contributing to my fear, to my depression, to my anxiety. And the more that those things were being fed, the more that energy was coming back to me. So it's true what they say, that whatever you put out into the universe is what you're going to get back. You're only going to get what you give. It's so, so true. So I consistently was sending out signals of all of these low vibrations that was bringing more and more of those low vibrations into my life. So the more that I started to understand that, I was able to start coming over and coming through, breaking through those barriers, breaking through those limiting beliefs that had been holding me back and keeping me small and keeping me safe. Because that's the ego's way of trying to be like, hey, that didn't feel good. We didn't like it when that happened. So let's just put a wall up here. And the next time that happens, you're going to be triggered. You're going to be triggered right away. And as soon as that trigger comes up, then that's it. Game over. Walls up. Things are going to come spewing out of your mouth that you don't necessarily mean. And there's just going to be a lot of anger behind it. So I did the work. And then I came across this one webinar, or this something had popped up on my Facebook, and I couldn't even believe it, but it was, are you a domestic violence survivor? If so, click here. And it was just a little webinar that kind of talked about what happens to both the abusers and the abusees. So who was being abused and who was doing the abusing, so that I could understand, because for so long I felt like it was my fault. I felt like I was the problem. I felt like Anything that I did was just continuously bringing back bad things into my life. So I felt like, what was the point in trying? But when I came across this webinar, it simply stated, it's not about you. The abuse and the things that you have been through are not actually about you. It was about the other person, their fears, what they were projecting onto you, and the gaslighting from a narcissist. And so many things just began to click. And it was honestly from that moment on that I was able to forgive my abuser, that I could start to see the light. I didn't feel like I was in such a dark place anymore. I didn't feel like I had to survive this world alone. It was impactful when I just read that simple little thing. It's not about you. The abuse was not your fault. The abuse wasn't about you. The abuse didn't mean that you weren't good enough. The abuse was about their fear. The abuse was about their PTSD. It's about their trauma. It actually had nothing to do with you. And it was from that point on that I was able to be like, oh, that makes so much sense. And then I started to learn about like what empaths were, which I am. I absorb other people's energies. I'm very, very sensitive to energy. And like as the road progressed and I was doing the healing, I was doing the work to make myself feel better, to get myself back into alignment with myself, to get myself to love me again, to accept myself fully and all of my faults and all of the good, all of the bad, all of it. That's when I was able to start making the moves like, oh, this really works. This work actually works. There's something to it. The more I dedicated to myself, the more that I began to understand that I needed to fill my cup first. And that's not a selfish thing to do. And it's really hard for empaths and sensitive people to do because we're people pleasers. Empaths and sensitive people are people pleasers. That's all that we want to do. We want to make sure that everybody around us is happy and healthy, usually to the detriment of our own happiness. But here's the thing. When we don't fill up our cups first, when we don't have that practice or that thing that can help us get away from day-to-day life, then we're starting to just run on autopilot. Our cup isn't full. We're on autopilot. We cannot be the best versions of ourselves for the people who need it the most if we don't fill our cups first. That was a really hard one for me to overcome because it was just, I couldn't let go of that control. I couldn't let go of what it was that made me feel safe, right? But as I continued to put myself first, put my emotions first, honor myself for how I was feeling, I was filling my cup first, and I started noticing all of the relationships around me changing. So things between me and my husband weren't always perfect. You know, it's just like any other relationship, any other marriage. You have your ups, you have your downs, you have your ruts, you have your good times, your bad times. It's just like life. It has an ebb and a flow. But it's how we decide to take care of ourselves through those ebbs and flows that's going to make all of the difference. So say you and your husband were to get into a fight, or you and your wife, whoever's watching, were to get into a fight and you said things that you regret immediately. You're thinking about it afterwards and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. You start feeling guilty and then you start beating yourself up. If you fill your cup first, make sure you start your day on a positive note, then it's going to change how systems run in your house. So me going through all of these things, being, bullied throughout most of my life, being a domestic violence victim, which I don't like using the word victim. I think I would rather say maybe a domestic violence experience. Even though it's not a great experience to have, it was still an experience. And it was because of that experience that kind of led me down this path. Because I feel like without that super traumatic event happening in my life, I wouldn't have explored how to heal myself. Because the thing with the bullies, I always just chalked it off like, whatever. That's childhood. That's part of growing up. That's the bumps that you earn while you're growing up. Not everybody had to go through it, but some people do. You know, I would always make an excuse for the bullying, right? But it was the domestic violence experience that definitely started have me questioning my worth. And when I began questioning my worth, that's when it led me down a path. Like, it truly did. It led me down a path where eventually I had enough of myself. I had enough of the doubt. I had enough of the guilt. I had enough of the shame. I had enough of all of it that I was willing to seek something that was going to help me feel better. And the more that I did the work and the more that I focused on what it is that makes me happy, the more the relationships around me were able to change, and for the positive. Now, there are some relationships around me that changed that definitely weren't for the positive. However, I understand now that some relationships are only meant to be in our lives for certain amounts of time. Nobody is meant to be permanent, like all the time. Like, you do have your permanent people, of course, which I would hope for you is family members, but not every family works that way. But there's permanent people in your life, and there are some that are only supposed to be there for a season or two or a few, but not everybody is meant to stay in our lives forever. And as I changed, I noticed some of those relationships falling away from me, or some of those relationships changing. So it took me going through a bit of a grieving process in some of those changes, because I didn't like it. I didn't like losing certain relationships or certain relationships changing, because I started putting me first. But then it was a big wake-up call, like, they really weren't there for my best interest then. If they couldn't support me through my good times as much as they supported me in my bad times, then they were just looking for somebody to maybe pity, or that could make them feel better about themselves because their life wasn't so rough. Whatever the case may be, right? So as I was willing and able to start letting those things go and recognizing that not everybody's meant to stay into every season, I started getting a lot of really good messages from the universe and what it is that I'm supposed to do with all of this experience, right? Because even though, yeah, the bullying sucked, the domestic violence definitely sucked, and then certain other things weren't great, but all of those experiences led me to where I am today. So I do not harbor any negative feelings about those experiences, because they were needed to bring me where I am today. But it's through those experiences that I truly feel like I can help others, that I can help other people see the light that may be suffering from the same issues that I suffered from. You know, there are many levels of PTSD, but PTSD from a domestic violence point of view is definitely something that I have enough experience in that I feel confident that I would be able to help another person with, right? I mean, trauma is trauma at the end of the day, and a lot of the emotions are the same, even if the situations are different. But that's what led me down the path of Reiki and crystals and all of the other things. Like, crystals I've always had a connection to. The earth I've always had a connection to. I was that crazy kid in the backyard, 6, 7 years old, pulling plants out of the ground and mixing them up in my bowl and smashing them up, making them smell really good, and making medicines, right? Like, that's just always who I was. So when I was able to come back to that, when I was able to tap back into that energy of like what used to draw me as a child to the earth and to the crystals, it's just like my whole life and my energy just completely changed. And I believe it's like those shifts and those experiences is what makes me capable to do what I call spiritual coaching, because through the experiences, I was able to find my spirituality again. For a long time, I blamed God. I blamed God for putting me in this body. I blamed God for putting me into those situations where I wasn't safe. But now, as I'm older and I've done the work and I've processed through it, it made me realize that those things didn't happen to me. They happened for me. They happened for me to get onto the path that I needed to be on. It happened for me to expand my mind. It happened for me so that I could expand into what I feel my purpose and my passion is now. So all of those experiences were very, very important to get me to where I am. And this is why I feel like I am capable to be a spiritual coach, because I've been through stuff. I've been through hard stuff. And I'm 35 years old, and I feel like I've been through, maybe, I don't really want to compare, but I do feel like I've been through more than what most typical people would at my age. And it's given me a level of maturity. It's given me a level of confidence. It's just given me so much that I am actually thankful and grateful for every experience that I've had. So I just wanted to share that with you guys so you can get understanding on where I come from, what makes it seem like I would even know what I'm doing or talking about. It's just because I've been through stuff. And I have done nothing else over the last 2 years except explore so many different modalities and finding what worked for me. Because not everybody's the same. Not everything is going to work the same for everybody. But I went through it all to see what it was that worked best for me. And I've compiled certain tools that I've placed in my toolbox that I know work. So if anybody out there has an energy similar to me, if you resonate with this on any kind of level, reach out to me because I would love to help you. I want everybody in this world to absolutely live their best possible life by healing those traumas, by overcoming those traumas, and getting to a place where you can accept it as an experience, and that you can accept that forgiveness is sometimes needed. Now, when it comes to me and the abuser situation, forgiveness was not for him. Forgiveness was for me so that I could overcome it, so that I could be with the experience and just be like, it wasn't about me. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough. That was just the stories that I told myself because that's the only reason somebody could hurt me that's supposed to love me, right? So I've been through it, and I feel like those experiences, if you're open and willing, if you've been through similar experiences, then if you can come to a place of acceptance and forgiveness, it's going to change a lot for you. It's going to help boost that mindset, boost the energy, boost the nervous system, what's going to boost the immune system. You're not going to get as sick as much. You're not going to be as tired. You're not going to feel emotionally drained and exhausted all of the time. It's just, there's so much that it can help with. And I truly hope that you'll reach out to me if this resonates with you on any kind of level, because I truly feel like I have some great tools that can help. And if I feel like for any reason I may not be the person for you, I know lots of people that can help with different modalities that may work for you. So I just wanted to share that. That's all that I'm going to share for today with that story. But hopefully that'll make you realize and recognize that bad things happen to everybody. Everybody goes through their stuff. But it's how we take care of ourselves going through those experiences and how we're willing to perceive those experiences is what's going to make the difference. So if I can help you shift a mindset towards something, that might just set your journey into radical transformation immediately. You never know. It's worth a try, right? So in other news, I wanted to share something super duper exciting that I have recently got, because you know that I'm all about the moon energy and I love kind of sharing what's happening with the moon, what's happening with the solar energies. Hold on, I'm going to be interrupted. Yeah, go for it.
How do you open this for me?
Sure.
Thank you, Dada.
All right, there you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I have some new tools in my tool belt, something that's going to help me help you even more. So I essentially have the Moon Bible, guys. I have the Moon Bible. This is called Moonology, and it's by a very well-known astrologer. Her name is Yasmin Boland. She's very famous. She does a lot of work for newspapers, articles, websites, blogs, etc. Like, she's all over the place. And she has created this amazing book that really gets into all of the phases of the moon and how to work with the different lunar cycles. So by me gaining this knowledge, I'm going to be able to put together some really amazing programs for you guys, whether that be like full moon rituals, new moon rituals, just things to put your focus and intention on so that you can work with the moon energy as well. Let me do the work so that I can share the experience with you, right? And then, of course, because she has oracle cards, I had to get the Moonology deck too. I mean, come on, guys, it just makes sense. So now when we're doing our new moon and full moon stuff, I'm going to bust out the Moonology oracle cards, and we'll get a little bit more guidance as to what the energy is that you need to be feeling and working with through that lunar cycle. So I'm really, really excited. I'm putting together an amazing program for 2021. You're going to want to make sure that you get the notification on that one. So make sure that you like and follow this page. Subscribe to my YouTube, Instagram. You'll see me in all of those places when this is ready to go, when the 2021 moon stuff is ready to go. But in the meantime, as I mentioned before, we do have chakra kits coming. There is a bit of a delay. We're hoping that we will have everything out and on the market by mid-August-ish. And it's going to be jam-packed with so many extras. So this is not just a crystal kit that I'm putting together for you guys. I'm not just going to send you a bag of crystals and you're going to be on your way. No. I have been writing and content creating like mad. You guys are going to get like ebooks, you're going to get guided meditations, you're going to get frequency music. There's so many things that are going to be included. So it's really like a full package that's going to assist your radical transformation with crystals. And of course, all of the crystals are going to come Reiki charged for you so you can jumpstart your journey. Then there's also going to be a distance Reiki package as well. So it'll be a distance Reiki session, another guided meditation that I've been compiling and putting together for you guys. We're so, so close. And also, sorry, one last thing. I have revamped, sorry, I should say we, because my husband really did do a lot of work on the website because I am so not technical when it comes to building websites. Like, I want to pull my hair out, honestly, when it comes to that kind of thing. So he's been working really hard for me, which I deeply appreciate and I'm grateful for. He got the website revamped. I actually have a proper homepage now, so you guys can go read up a little bit about the story, a little bit what I do. You can book your Reiki sessions right on my website. I have that set up now too. The blogs are all organized by section. I have chakra education, crystal spotlights, and what there's another category I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but if you go to the website, you'll see all of that stuff. So if there is anything in particular that you're looking for, whether it be more information on Reiki, more information on certain crystals, just head on to the website, go to the blog, and see if their information is there. I'm still working on the crystal library. That is pushed back just a little, just because we're putting so much work into this crystal kit sale that we're putting together. And I think that's it. So thank you so, so much for being here. Thank you for listening to the story, whether you were here live or on the replay. This video will be going up on YouTube as well, so you can always go over there and check it out if you'd like. Make sure you hit like and subscribe over at YouTube too, because that just helps me get more seen, get more recognized, and that's only going to help me help you even more. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll chat soon, especially as I start digging into this Moonology work. I cannot wait. I'm so excited. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so, so much.